Starting off, right off the bat, I want to thank my patron multiversalists, the members of the multiversalists community, my community. I'm going to say the community that I am a part of. That includes my readers, friends, fans, and other writers and creators. Thanks to J.C. Hutchins, to Jim Lewinson, to Amelia Bowen, to Ted Leinhart, to Charles Eugene Anderson, Scott Roche, Harold Johnson, and David Mackler. These are folks who are paying, anywhere from around $5 a month, all the way up to $25 a month, to support what it is that I do, which is create. This is technically the first episode of what we are now calling Matthew Wayne Selznick Creates. You've probably come here as a subscriber to Sonitotum, my previous podcast on making stuff, finding success as we each define it for ourselves, and staying healthy and sane in the process. We did 107 episodes of that show. Last episode of Sonitotum was kind of the first episode of this show, sort of a transition, sort of a liminal space between the two, as I explained what this would be. And what this is just me talking to you about making things, about what is around making things, about the life lived while trying to make things. I am recording this with my lavalier mic, and I'm a little concerned about how it's going to sound. I can see it peaking every now and again. Hopefully not too terribly. Almost wonder if there's not some way I can diminish that with the software that I'm using, other than just moving the microphone farther away from my face. But anyway, I'm sitting in my car in the Sprouts parking lot. Sprouts is one of those sort of organic and hippy-dippy and natural foods grocery stores, not as expensive as Whole Foods, which you might have heard of. Anyway, it's Sunday evening, 7:48 p.m. on February 23rd, 2025, as I talk to you right now. I'm sitting in my car in the parking lot of this grocery store because Thursdays through Sunday nights I drive deliveries with Uber Eats as a way to supplement my freelance income and my creative income. It's not great, but it's necessary right now. If you've listened to Sonitotum for any length of time, or if you're already part of the Multiversalists community, you've read about this in the newsletter, in the emails that I send out. It's not really a newsletter, but the emails that I send out when I want to communicate with my community every now and again. It's been a rough, well over a year now. More like 16 to 18 months, I guess. It's been rough. My partner has not been able to do any kind of consistent work for a long time now. She's officially disabled, but also had to have hip replacement surgery on her right hip in 2023. And that healing process took a lot longer than anyone expected. It was only kind of mid to late 2024 that she was really given a clean bill of health and is in the process of kind of strengthening herself and getting back, kind of literally getting back on her feet. And in the meantime, I've been the sole earner, apart from some disability that she gets. But I've been the sole earner, and I took a big hit, about a third of my income, in late 2023, early 2024, and have not recovered from that. And so I drive deliveries, which I kind of hate. It's just about the least efficient way to earn money, but it's money in hand at the end of the night. And it really has saved our bacon pretty much every month that I've done it, basically paying my share of the rent. Anyway, it's a Sunday night. I'm sitting in this parking lot because this is supposed to be a high delivery area. And that's what you do. You drive to the red spots on the map and you park and you wait to get a delivery notice. And then you go and you pick up the food and you go and you take it to the person. I cannot believe I'm 57 years old and I'm doing this. Not that there aren't a lot of people. I see them standing, waiting for orders, just like me. I see them out here on the road. But this is not the life that I expected to have. And the fact of it, the reality of how my life is right now has made it really difficult to be the Matthew Wayne Selznick who creates. Financial stress, it's kind of like, you know how when you're walking in wet grass, maybe after a rain or whatever, and you're not paying attention, and there's a little dip maybe, or a squirrel hole or something, and you don't see it until your foot goes in it, and because it's been raining, suddenly you're soaked up to your ankles. That's kind of what financial instability is like. You never know when you're going to take a step that just leaves you soaked. The ground is unstable and holds hazards. It's a poorly constructed metaphor. It's like the opposite of walking on eggshells. It's like walking on moving tiles that are floating over quicksand. And if you're a Gen X person like me, you know that as a kid, we really thought quicksand would be a big deal. It would be a big hazard because every other episode of every other TV show that we saw, the good guys were always getting stuck in quicksand, or so it seemed. Financial instability is like never really knowing where the quicksand is, but knowing you could step in it at any minute. It's very stressful. It's perpetually stressful. And that stress, that state of fight or flight, leaves very little, for me, I will speak for myself, it leaves very little emotional, mental space to be creative. which is very frustrating. That's nothing I haven't talked about before. And it's not necessarily why I turned on the recorder tonight to talk to you, but that's the setting. Let's set the scene. That's where I am. That's what I'm doing. That's why I'm sitting in my car at 4 minutes to 8 at night on a Sunday, waiting to see what happens. On the positive side of things, yesterday I put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 of my handmade, signed and numbered limited run chapbooks. That's chapbooks, C-H-A-P books, in the mail for 3 different people. That's pretty cool. I offer these chapbook editions of my short stories and novelettes. And I opened up 4 that I used to offer, like way back 2009 through 2014 or so. I brought them back on the market, and one person bought all 4 plus one other new one. Another person bought all 4. And because I introduced my latest novelette, The Perfumed Air at... Sorry, not my latest novelette. My next to latest novelette, The Perfumed Air at Kawanatag Bay. Wow, I can't talk. All the talk about money and the fact that I am the age I am, and I've done the things I've done in my life, and there's a little bit of shame involved there. And I think it's making me a little self-conscious. It's freezing up my mouth in the same way that when I was a performing musician in the late 80s through the very early 2000s, I was mostly a bass player. I'm still mostly a bass player, but that was what I did in bands. And I never got stage fright, but sometimes during the first song on stage, my left hand, my fretting hand, would get really tense and tight and hard to move my fingers. And I think it was nerves. And I think a little bit of that is happening tonight. I can kind of feel it in my throat and in my chest. Maybe it's because also this is the first episode of this new podcasting flavor. This new show, Matthew Wayne Selznick Creates. I gave it that name because, as I mentioned in the last episode of Sonitotum, it's spot on. It's on the nose. But you know what? It's also, it's kind of a bold declaration, and it's a ballsy thing to call a show when one does so little actual creating. So I think I'm feeling that. But anyway, in addition to the short stories that I reintroduced as handmade, limited run, signed and numbered chapbooks, I added my next to last novelette, The Perfumed Air at Kawanatag Bay, and my latest Sovereign era short story, The News from Bewilder Pond. So those two new ones, my gold level patrons, of which at this point there is just one, J.C. Hutchins. When you're the gold level, you get everything that I release, digital or tangible, you get absolutely for free. So, since I just released those two new chapbooks, I made one each for J.C. Hutchins and mailed those off to him. And his fellow patron, Harold Johnson, ordered 4 of the chapbooks, the 2 new ones and a couple of the old ones that he had not ordered before. Mailed those off to him. And not a patron member, but absolutely a patron, Troy Clem III, who has, at this point now, purchased all of the chapbooks. He picked up all 5 that he had not owned previously. So it felt good to make those. And it, it takes a little bit of work, each one, because I take the time to lay out the interiors and design the cover in my desktop publishing software. I use Affinity Publisher. And then print out the pages, basically 8.5 by 11, folded in half, arranged, landscape style, so that you end up with a little booklet that is, do I have a delivery, or is that a text coming in? Just a text. Anyway. So you take an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, you fold it over, you've got, 8.5 by, 5.5, right? And that's the chapbook size. And the cover is, cardstock, and the interior is just regular paper. Anyway, gotta print it out. My printer is not, it always jams if I try to do cardstock paper double-sided. So I have to manually flip it over and do both sides of the covers. Anyway, get them all printed out, fold each 8.5 by 11 sheet individually, and make sure it has a nice sharp crease, collate those, with the cover on, fold the whole thing back and forth a couple of times at the fold on the spine there, so that it lays flat. Staple it, 3 staples. I've got one of those staplers that's sort of like got an extended arm, so that I can, so that the half of so that I can staple the spine. I think you can picture it. And then once it's stapled, fold it again, final time, and get it good and flat. I just use a wooden rule to sort of press down and kind of iron, if you will, the fold. Number it, sign it, put it in an envelope, address the envelope, drive it to the post office, mail it. So these are really handmade, sort of artisanal, works of publishing. And each one, there will only ever be 100 made of each one of these. So it makes me feel good when people order them, because it's really my personal effort making this tangible thing that's going from being made by my hands to being put in their hands. And to me, that's special, because sure, folks could buy paperback books for a number of the things that I've released and hold those in their hands, but I don't have anything to do with making those other than the actual writing and designing. I'm not printing those paperback books myself, right? So the chapbooks are special, and it always tickles me. excuse me. It always tickles me when anybody orders them. So that's a bright spot, right? That's nice. And even though none of those stories are new, that is a creative thing that I did in this last week is making those chapbooks, and it feels good. The other positive thing to think about is that in January, revenue from the patron members of my community surpassed the goal that's necessary for me to write a new short story. And so that's pretty great. You know, it happened last January as well, and that resulted in my Daikaiju Universe novelette, Reggie vs. Kaiju Storm Dragon Squid Bat. This time around, I decided to let my patron multiversalists vote on which of my 4 story worlds the next patron-sponsored, if you will, short story would be based in. Whether it's my sort of realistic fantasy setting, the Shaper's world, or the aforementioned kind of giant monsters in the real world, Daikaiju Universe story world, or my alternate history with superpowers story world, the Sovereign era, or the story world that's kind of an occult, urban kind of cross between the X-Files and the Night Stalker and maybe H.P. Lovecraft story world that I'm calling the Protector cycle. I've got story ideas for all 4 of these that I could write, but I thought I would leave it up to the patrons, those patrons that I mentioned right at the start of the episode, to vote on which one they wanted me to write. And as it turned out, votes came in with a tie between a Sovereign era story and a Shaper's World story. So I need to figure out which one is farthest away from just being an idea and is closer to something that I can actually write. Another benefit of being a multiversalist patron member is you get to hear the uncut, unedited version of these podcast episodes. And I think I'm going to spend some time just brainstorming and talking about these 2 different story ideas. And that will be the sort of members only segment of this episode. Chances are, since we're already at 24 minutes now, and I really ought to make sure that I'm getting some more deliveries tonight and earning a little bit more money, I will probably record that portion of this episode at a different time. But, you know, it's important that I remember that it's not all doom and gloom, that I have in one way, shape, or form created something, and I've got something else to create coming up, thanks to my patrons. Things are rough. It's bad. But I'm still finding some space to make things. And that's important. That's important, really for my mental health. And, you know, kind of like how exercising, you know, helps with, leveling your mood, right? Even elevating your mood. For me, creating, is kind of a pressure valve, I guess, in a way. And when I don't do something, everything else suffers. So I think it's really important that I do remember that I have done something, and I've got something new to do. And people expect me to do it because they literally paid so that I would, by making their patron pledges in January and helping meet that goal. So that's what's going on there. It wasn't what I intended to spend this half hour talking about. But maybe that's it. Because the other stuff, frankly, is all kind of negative. And why, why go there? Yeah, maybe some other time. But for now, yeah, I think that's it for the public portion of the show. If you are a member patron and you're listening to this directly on the website over there at mattselznick.com, then you will be able to just keep listening, and the members only portion of the episode will just continue. And yeah, I'm going to kind of talk through the two ideas I have for the two short stories and maybe begin to try to figure out which one is more ready for me to actually write. And if you are a member patron and you want to keep listening, be aware that, you're going to be spoiling whichever one of these stories ends up getting written or I'm going to be spoiling it because I'm going to be talking about, plot elements and story elements and characters and things. And both of these stories take place in specific in specific story worlds. So, it'll be giving away things about the Sovereign Era story world and things about the Shaper's world story world. And, so if you're a patron member and you don't mind, having both of these stories spoiled a little bit, one of which will be written, both of which will be written eventually, but one of which will be the next thing that I write, then, yeah, you don't want to keep going with this. There'll be a little music break, and then, if you don't want to hear that stuff, just press stop. But if you are a member patron and you want to keep going, just hang out with me. If you are not a member patron and would like to become one, you can visit mattselznick.com/be-a-patron. All one word, I think. Or you can click the join the community button right there on the homepage at mattselznick.com. It's all the same. It'll get you there. And you can become a patron for as little as $4.17 a month when you pay at the annual rate, as little as $5 a month if you pay month to month. There are many other perks. You'll see all the perks and whatnot right there, on the join the community page. And once you do become a patron multiversalist, the full uncut version of this episode and all the previous episodes of Sonitotum will be available to you to listen. Anyway, that's enough. As always, my name is Matthew Wayne Selznick. Take care.